Hi, thanks for joining. My name is Tom Brennan. I'm going to provide you with a quick overview of how to get started with RunRiver during your evaluation. To start off with, you've been provided with a username and password. When you log into the platform, you'll have simply a blank canvas. So this will give you a quick overview. To start off with, on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice that there's a user icon. Here you'll have a history of your searches, the settings for your account, and also the ability to log out. I highly recommend you go into your account at this time and change your password. You also have the ability to export or to print your material out, set up alerts, conduct searches on profiles and keywords, and also go ahead and have information populated here within the canvas. So let's get started, shall we? The first thing I want to do is I want to define an example. So I run the OWASP Foundation New York City chapter, which is an open source community. OWASP is about 43,000 people around the world. The New York City chapter has a bunch of members. So we're going to go ahead and use that as our test case. So I've learned information about the OWASP New York City chapter. I think it's pretty interesting and I want to learn more. So what I want to do here from a social context is start off by searching on the profile OWASP New York City. As you'd expect, I'm going to come up with publicly available information from Twitter. When I search, I get a result that's going to then allow me to drill down farther. Now, if I was looking for John Doe, I might want to go ahead and filter this information down by location or exact username or even platform. RunRiver has the ability to look at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google. We'll touch on different platforms along the way. So within this particular account, you'll notice that we've searched for OWASP New York City. The result was a profile page. We found a Google Plus page. It uses the same nomenclature, the same naming standard, looking for events or any groups. So it's always important to double check these that you've covered all your bases. So when I go ahead and look at the OWASP New York City chapter, the first thing I'm going to do is look and see the word blurb here and say, yep, this looks like the right place. So I want to go ahead and follow that. What that will do is it'll go out to this particular account and examine and look at all of the historical data, as well as the links and the associated folks that are tweeting or corresponding with this account. You also notice that before I had the RunRiver information on the Google Plus account or the page. So I might want to click on that and then also go ahead and validate that in fact, yep, this looks like the right account, and then I might want to follow that as well. So now we have two accounts that are now being followed. And we might want to go ahead and create a group for our collections purposes, as well as in the future, I may have multiple projects that I work on. So we create a group, call this one OWASP New York City Review. And I might want to drag these two items into that particular project or group. So from here, the first thing I might want to do is, again, you have to have a defined goal. In my defined goal, I'm trying to find out top talkers, top influencers, people that are associated with this particular chapter, so I can kind of understand, perhaps from a marketing perspective, which ones have or are outspoken or have views that I want to understand or learn more about. So if I look at the timeline, I can go ahead and go back in time as far as I want, but let's just go back to perhaps January and look at exactly the updates or the tweets that were made since then and what that timeline looks like. Now again, I manage this account, so the concept here is that I tweet when I have a chance. It's a volunteer effort. But if I want to go ahead and look at sort of an analysis based on time, you can start sort of figuring out, okay, so this account's used sporadically. It's probably going to be an East Coast account based on the time zone. So this is 6 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time. And of course, from 6 a.m. till it looks like about 11 on average is when those tweets are sent out. And of course, this is from January. So you assume this is a sort of a sleep pattern time. But there's this one tweet out here at 1 o'clock in the morning that is talking about hack New York City for St. Patrick's Day. So perhaps diving into these accounts and these links would provide information as to what this account's really about. But being able to quickly kind of dive into the information and what people are communicating with is useful. But perhaps you want to look at the media that's there as well. So let's go back and do that same thing. Do that from January. And again, it'll reveal information about the group, which again is public information. This is not any sort of secretness. It's right, the data is sitting here as well in the public side of Twitter, but this is more of a tool that can be utilized for the same purpose in more of a different, in a different way. So as we look at a particular post, we see other associated accounts that might be interesting to us, and perhaps you want to click on those accounts and start looking at them as well. Say hack New York City. Okay, well, this looks like a legit account. This is the one I'm looking for. Perhaps I want to take the hack_New York City. I want to go up here. I want to validate it just to double check. Sort of what the purpose of the account is, and go, okay, well, yep, this looks like the account I'm interested in, and then, of course, collect the same data on that account. So now we have 3 accounts that are now being collected on. And as the correlation of information is there, we can go into them each individually or as a group, but let's continue on our quest here. We look at the network, and this is more of a conversation of, okay, well, again, let's go back to January. What communication or connections has this account tweeted to or communicated with? This would help illustrate or visualize some of that information. You have the maximum results that can be populated here. So in this case, I can put in like a number like, 3. And I'm just looking for the top people that these people communicate with. And you can see there's not a lot of back and forth on this particular account. However, here's somebody simply asking information about an upcoming meeting. If we wanted to, again, drill into that individual, we could do the exact same thing and go forth and collect or learn more information about that particular account as well. If you look at the Explorer view, this is where it starts getting interesting from an analytics perspective very quickly. You'd imagine that things are in clusters. For example, the OWASP New York City account, you'd imagine there's a lot of folks in New York City that follow the account, right? So here's your people that are based in New York City, or they have information that they're there. These would be the results of those accounts that are in New York City, and of course the breakout of the different states. So demographically, it seems like this account has a pretty good reach across some of the United States and even some places outside the United States. If you want to understand more information about the associates and the people that associate with the account, this would show you that this account, OWASP AppSec USA, which happens to be just another account that's used by OWASP for promotion of their conferences, it shares relationships it shares 92 relationships with the OWASP New York City account. And when you click on it, you find out who those are. If you take the next person on the list, I'll use myself here, and I share 85 relationships with the account. You can quickly start looking at the combination and say, okay, well, who does this account and this account share? Who does this account share? And you start seeing how it quickly narrows that down. And all of a sudden, you can see that everybody, or these 4 accounts in conjunction with the New York City account, all share the national CCDC account, which you may know is for red team, blue team exercises for academia. But as you drill into that account, you can now start looking at that particular account and start figuring out the social circle or the network very quickly. It's again, a useful tool for marketing analytics and demographic type things. When you look at languages, again, as you'd expect, this is languages that are spoken, and of course, if you're looking for folks associated with New York City chapter that might speak Korean, might be a good place to start, which would obviously indicate a normal connection here. And then, of course, this gentleman here as well. So this is a quick overview of how to get started with RunRiver for that particular account. Again, there are multiple accounts now being reviewed or being looked at, but if you wanted to start doing so yourself, you start off by putting in the profile information or searching by keyword. So let's jump over to the keyword discussion. So what I'm interested in now is in the word OWASP by itself. And again, I used OWASP in this demonstration because it's the Open Web Application Security Project, radically transparent, and everything that's done there is not done in any sort of secrecy. So I think it's a good exercise to examine that organization and basically what people are saying about it and who's talking about what. So again, the tool will go out and look at collections of posts, and we'll look at information associated with the posters with the most published posts using the word OWASP, which is Network Security for You, and then others that, if you're an OWASP guy, you would probably recognize a lot of these names very quickly. Who shares the most posts with things associated with OWASP and other folks that are there. So, real straightforward data. And if you were to change the timeline here, it would have to collect a lot more information and then go ahead and illustrate that. So it's useful for gathering historical context. As we showed you earlier with the weekly posts and or the locations, this is where you start getting into that discussion of, okay, is this a global organization and who's talking about it around the world over that period of time? And of course, social media like LinkedIn, sending you little alerts, quickly shows you that it's constantly being used. So all around the world, obviously, OWASP has a presence that people are talking about. And if we click on, there's Troy Hunt down in Australia. Hey, Troy. And others that are down here in New Zealand. So it's interesting to quickly see within the community where people are located, whether you're perhaps tweeting from or chatting from, where they're at. There's Bill. So again, a lot of these folks, it's a very small community, even though it's got thousands and thousands of people around the world. So looking at that keyword perhaps might be interesting. And perhaps you want to follow on that keyword, and then perhaps you're looking for information around that keyword, and then you want to set an alert. So every time the word OWASP might be used, you might want to get alerted of that. And although you can do that, let's say Google Alerts, you can also go a little farther here with social media. You can set this up so that if in the fact that the account OWASP tweets to the profile name of Tom Brennan or Brennan Tom, then it would go ahead and throw an alert to me, and then also perhaps vice versa. So again, just giving you some examples of how this could be used. Again, so RunRiver is a good place to start. If we look at another account, I'm going to look at, let's see here. I think that's what my account's under. So again, I'm looking for Brennan Thomas now, and there's a lot of them, a pretty common Irish name. I'm also going to filter this down and look only for Facebook. And there we go. There's my Facebook account, and I'm going to look at my Facebook account as anyone could by looking at it from the outside. You'll notice that my Facebook profile account has 0 friends and 0 followers. And this is because my account is not shared with anybody, meaning that RunRiver doesn't have access to my account. As well as as a security guy, obviously I prefer to keep my information somewhat private. But I want to show you now what's useful with inference as well as in centrality analysis. So again, we have little information available here on this guy in his crazy shirt. So let's go ahead and follow him and see what's going on. So as you start following a public account or an account that's exposed to social media, you'll quickly look at the posts that are analyzed and information that's there. What RunRiver is doing here in the background is it's looking for connections to Tom Brennan in its database. Individuals that perhaps don't have their security settings as stringent as they could or should be. But basically, my mom or others in my social circles that I may share an interest with or may have been tagged in a photograph, that sort of thing is what is useful here, because this sort's helping create or establishing data. We demonstrated before the timeline, the media, the network stuff. So let me jump into the Explorer tab here and show you how this would actually work. So again, I was sharing nothing, but you can see these numbers are slowly rising as the collections of the information that's inferring information about Tom is being collected. We can go from the bottom up here and say that there's information here that Tom is associated with that others are publicly allowing access to, that would indicate that Tom also happens to like this. And yeah, I absolutely love science. If you look at religious views, if you look at political views, if you look at the languages that I'm associated with or others that are involved, perhaps you can go ahead and identifying others that are there. Now, John happens to be my uncle. If you start looking at others around the world, Matteo's a good friend over in Italy who's involved in OWASP. Joe Bernick, a friend of mine as well. So as you look at the different folks that are involved here, you start quickly seeing, okay, well, these individuals have information that's publicly available that is then able to be accessed, that could then infer their association with me or friends or relationships with me that then tie back to who those associates are. So in this example here, I share 12 relationships with Andrew of Andrew's unknown relationships, because this is private. Andrew's locked down his profile. But this means that others that are publicly sharing their information are connected to both myself and Andrew. Others that are here are sharing their entire account list. For instance, JP here is showing 347 of his friends publicly. And then, of course, they start, being able to sort of spider through that and figure out relationship analysis. If we look at the conversation of, okay, well, what's common again between Andrew and Jay, you can start seeing the OWASP project. So if you look at the OWASP project now, you drill into that, you'll see the OWASP project has 5,000 or 6,000. Why that kind of jumped, associated friends, and you want to follow that. And what that is now doing is it's able to look at the profiles that are associated with that particular account. So this is where that conversation goes about relationship analysis, and you're kind of defined by the people that you hang out with. So if you look at what we're doing now, we start collecting data on these different profile accounts and finding information that's there. You start realizing that different groups, different people within social circles are going to help start telling stories. And I want to illustrate this by using, I guess I'll use my Twitter account and show you how that might work. So again, I filtered down. I'm only looking for the Brennan Tom Twitter account here. I find it. I look at it. I validate it. Yep, that's his ugly mug. Click on follow. And that will collect the publicly available data. There's no infiltration here. There's no fake accounts that are following people. The user doesn't have a new friend. This is all public open source data. So nothing behind the privacy wall. You can utilize the tool as in my pen testing side of my life. I use it for social media profiling to identify perhaps entry points into organizations. From an analytical perspective or from a marketing perspective, I might utilize it to identify researchers or folks that are communicating on a particular topic of interest. If it's looking for people that that like Apple watches and who are very influential in that particular space, perhaps I want to look at top talkers or communicators that might drive social circles forward. Again, I illustrated to you earlier the visual here. This just shows who Tom has talked to in the last couple days, sort of illustrating that. If you click on links like this from Steve, there's communication happening between me and Steve on a particular topic, and I guess I'll use Josh as another example. But you can quickly start ascertaining that information may be useful. Going into the Explorer tab, you start learning a little bit more about Tom Brennan. You know who his associates are, who he's talking to, and that provides you with sort of a collection of information that could be utilized from a marketing perspective or analytical perspective, a background check perspective, whatever it may be. And as this collects, these buttons being grayed here are actual collections. So when I click on history here, you'll see that there's collectors or this information is currently being updated as we go along. So when we look at the user account, let me go back to the Twitter account here, and we go back to the Explorer button, and listing populates because again it's still updating. So it'll update along the way. You can see that this guy, just to confirm, Brennan Tom, he's got 16,000 tweets, a bunch of followers, and a bunch of things that are favorited, right? So I'm only following 177 people, 3,400 people are following me. If I look at it from this side, you see the exact same information. But then you want to look at the associates, for folks that are mutually following me and I'm following them. So Wim, as an example, also is following 293 of the people that I'm following. Does that make sense? So we start looking at that. We say, okay, well, who's common there? And again, we use it as another example. Between Wim, between Andrew, between Aaron, we start looking at commonalities, and you can sort of nail it down a little bit here to say, okay, well, there's people that are in the social circle that we all respect, that we all happen to be following, and then of course you can utilize that in many different ways. So what's common between Josh and Trey and Steve and Wim, and then who else can we throw into the mix here? Let's use Rob Fuller. So Tony Vargas and Indy. Or Chris Nickerson. So as you drill into those individuals, that becomes interesting because, of course, there's commonality here with ISC squared and with some work that Tony's done and some work that Chris has done. So that's where the social circles start meaning something. and it allows you to quickly dive deep or look at social media open source data fairly quickly and utilize it in ways that perhaps could be useful in your line of work. In closing, if we go back to the Facebook side, we go back to the Explorer tab, you'll notice that these buttons are not grayed out anymore, so the collections are completed. We start looking at the friends again from a social media side, and remember, I'm not sharing any of my data publicly, but because these individuals are right, some of these folks don't have their profile or privacy settings as secure as they should be, perhaps. It goes ahead and provides information on others. So people like Jeremiah and Katie and Trey and Arian and Paul, these are folks that we all have in common, and you can quite see that the information security community is a fairly small community of people that know each other, and you can validate that sort of statement by looking at social media connections. And all of us share, let's say, Johnny Long in common, and Johnny is out in Africa on a mission. But this becomes interesting. It becomes interesting in many different ways. If you were to do this in a different scenario, again, let's close the book here and say that I'm done with the work I was doing. I can go back and simply unfollow these folks and take them off my list. And then perhaps I want to go ahead and start another case. And that would help me go ahead and start another project that might be focused on something completely different. So I'm going to show you another example of that to help you get started. And again, along the way here, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to the RunRiver folks. They're very responsive with using data analytics and how